You ever get that feeling where something's off before anything even happens? That's exactly how I felt the day I met her, the woman my neighbors warned me about, the self-proclaimed queen of the cul-de-sac. The one and only HOA Karen. I'd just moved into my new place a few weeks before. It wasn't fancy, an older, ranch-style home sitting on about 2 acres, at the end of a quiet street on the edge of town. What sold me wasn't the house itself, but the freedom. See, I'd spent 10 years renting under strict rules, no dogs, no sheds, no gardens, no life. So when I found a house with no HOA written in bold on the listing, I jumped on it. Freedom, that was the dream. And then I built the shed. It wasn't anything crazy. Just a 10x12 garden shed for tools and a little workshop space. My dad had built the frame with me over one long weekend. His country playlist blaring, sawdust flying, and cold lemonade sweating in plastic cups. It wasn't just a shed. It was a memory. A piece of peace. But apparently peace wasn't allowed around here. It started with a note. A plain sheet of paper taped to my front door. This structure violates neighborhood appearance standards. Please remove it immediately. HOA management. I stared at it for a good minute before laughing out loud. HOA management? There was no HOA here. I'd confirmed that 3 times with my realtor. That's when I saw her across the street, blonde bob cut, sunglasses too big for her face, arms crossed tight like she was holding in a lifetime of judgment. Karen. She gave me this smug smile, the kind that says I run this place. Then she waved like she was the mayor. Good morning, she called. I see you got my note. Your note? I stammered, still holding it. Yes, I'm the HOA president. You must be new here. We like to keep things neat in this community. I blinked. Ma'am, there's no HOA here. Her smile didn't even twitch. Oh, sweetie. This neighborhood's been under HOA oversight since 2004. You might want to check your deed. I knew she was bluffing, but I didn't bite. Thanks for the info, I said calmly. Have a good day. She frowned. That wasn't the reaction she wanted. People like her feed off compliance, and when they don't get it, they start to itch. Over the next few days, she made her rounds. I caught her taking pictures from across the street, pacing in front of my fence, even peeking over it once when she thought I wasn't home. It went from annoying to unsettling fast. Then came the first real confrontation, the day the cops showed up. It was a Saturday morning, bright and early, the kind of day meant for yard work and iced coffee. I was adjusting the hinges on the shed door when I heard tires crunching on gravel. 2 squad cars. Sir, are you the homeowner? One officer asked as he stepped out. Yes, sir. Everything all right? We received a call from a homeowners association representative about an unauthorized structure and potential zoning violation. My heart sank, but I kept my tone calm. You're kidding. She called the police. Over a shed? The officer gave me a look that said we get this more often than you'd think. We're just here to check it out, he said politely. Can you show us the property line? I nodded and pulled out the folded map I'd gotten from the county assessor's office. I'd studied that thing like a treasure map. See? My property actually extended beyond the paved road line. There was an easement strip that used to belong to the old farm that sat here 40 years ago. When the HOA formed later down the street, my land stayed outside their boundary by a few yards. That shed, sitting perfectly on my side of the line. I walked the officers over, pointing out the stakes and the markers. Karen, of course, had marched right out of her house the second she saw the lights. She came striding over in her floral blouse, holding a clipboard like it was a weapon. There he is, she declared. That shed violates HOA standards. It's an eyesore! We have color guidelines and setback requirements. The officer turned to her. Ma'am, are you the HOA president? Yes, I am, she said proudly. And I've filed a complaint. He needs to remove this immediately. The officer's face didn't change. Do you have documentation showing that this property falls under your HOA's jurisdiction? Karen hesitated. Well, it's part of the neighborhood. Everyone knows that. The officer looked at me. Sir? I handed him the map. According to the county, this land sits outside the HOA's boundary. My property line's right here. The officer studied it, then stepped back. He's right. This parcel isn't listed under your HOA's jurisdiction, ma'am. Karen's jaw dropped. That can't be right. It is, he said flatly. You can confirm with the county. But as far as we're concerned, there's no violation here. I'll never forget the sound she made, a kind of strangled gasp. Half outrage, half disbelief. She stood there, trembling, her sunglasses sliding down her nose. "This isn't over," she hissed. I smiled politely. "Sure thing, Karen. Have a blessed day." That should have been the end of it. But people like Karen don't lose gracefully. Over the next week, she escalated. Anonymous letters, fake citations taped to my mailbox. A petition circulating among neighbors about property values. Most of the neighbors ignored her. A few even apologized when they saw me outside. "Don't take it personal," one older man told me. "She's been trying to run this street like a mini-government for years." I nodded, but inside I was angry. Not just for me, but for every person she'd bullied into silence. So I started digging, literally and legally. I went down to the county courthouse, pulled up records, maps, and every HOA boundary document I could find. And guess what? Not only was my land outside their HOA, so was half of her street. Somehow, the HOA paperwork had never been properly updated when the county redrew property lines 20 years ago. Karen had been enforcing HOA rules on land she didn't even control. I printed everything out, highlighted the sections, and placed them neatly in a folder. If she wanted to play this game, I'd play smarter. But before I could even show my hand, she made her next move, a move that crossed a line. It was a Tuesday evening when I came home from work to find my garden gate open. Inside, my shed door was wide open, and some of my tools were scattered on the ground. Someone had been inside. And on my workbench in big, bold letters written with a black marker on a piece of plywood were the words. I stood there for a long minute, my hands shaking with a mix of fury and disbelief. This wasn't about rules anymore. This was personal. I knew exactly who did it, and I was done playing nice. The next morning, I wasn't just angry. I was determined. "You break into my shed? You threaten me? That's not an HOA issue anymore. That's a crime." I called the sheriff's department, and they sent out Deputy Morales, a tall guy with a calm tone, and the kind of patience you only get from dealing with small-town nonsense daily. He looked around the shed, took pictures, and nodded slowly. "Got any cameras?" he asked. "Not yet," I said. "Didn't think I'd need 'em out here." He gave a little grin. "You do now. I'll file the report, but without proof, there's not much we can do yet." I nodded, jaw tight. "I can fix that." That night, I went online and ordered 4 security cameras, motion lights, and a trail cam for good measure. By the weekend, my property looked like Fort Knox. But Morales had given me an idea. If she was willing to cross my fence, I'd catch her red-handed. And she didn't make me wait long. It was Friday night when my phone pinged with an alert. Motion detected. Backyard shed. I opened the feed and froze. There she was, Karen, sneaking through the side gate with a flashlight and a clipboard, dressed in black like she thought she was part of a SWAT team. She shined her light over my shed, took pictures, then unbelievably pulled out a can of red spray paint and started marking something on the ground. "Unbelievable," I muttered. I called Morales again, sent him the footage, and within an hour, a patrol car rolled up. By the time the officers reached her, Karen was mid-spray, drawing a big red X in front of my shed. "Ma'am, what are you doing?" the officer asked, stepping out of the car. Karen spun around, startled. "Oh, officers, good evening. I'm documenting an HOA violation. This shed is not compliant and is being marked for removal." The officer sighed. "Ma'am, you've already been told this property isn't under HOA control." Karen's tone turned sharp. "Well, I don't believe that. This affects our property values." The officer radioed something in, then turned to her. "You're trespassing, ma'am. The homeowner has video proof." Her face went pale. "That's ridiculous. I'm just... "Ma'am," he said firmly, "step back behind the fence, now." Karen started to argue, but when the second officer stepped closer, she finally huffed, spun on her heel, and stormed off. Before leaving, she shouted over her shoulder, "You'll regret this! You'll see?" I stood there beside the patrol car, arms crossed, feeling half angry, half amused. Morales turned to me. "You want to press charges?" I thought for a second. Tempting, very tempting, but not yet. "No," I said finally. "Not this time. Let her dig her own hole." He nodded slowly. "Smart, but keep the footage safe." "This isn't over." And he was right. It wasn't. 2 days later, I got a knock on my door. It wasn't the cops this time. It was 3 people. Karen, her husband, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else, and a man in a suit holding a folder. Karen smiled that fake politician's smile. "Good afternoon. We'd like to have a civil conversation about your ongoing violations." I took a deep breath and opened the door wider. "Sure, come on in." "Let's talk." We sat around my kitchen table, and the suited man cleared his throat. "I'm Mr. Devlin, counsel for the Homeowners Association. Mrs. Cunningham," he gestured to Karen, "has brought forward a complaint regarding your shed." I leaned back in my chair. "Counsel, you brought a lawyer to my kitchen?" He smiled politely. "We prefer to handle disputes professionally." Karen interjected. "The structure is non-compliant, too close to the street and painted an unapproved color." I looked at her deadpan. "It's gray," she sniffed. "Charcoal. We only allow lighter tones." That's when I dropped the folder. I'd been waiting to use, full of property records, HOA boundary maps, and the official county documents. I slid them across the table toward the lawyer. "Mr. Devlin, before you continue, you might want to look at page 3. That's the official HOA boundary map filed with the county registrar." He opened it, scanned, and frowned. Karen leaned in, impatient. "What's that supposed to prove?" Devlin's eyes narrowed. "Mrs. Cunningham, this property isn't within your HOA's jurisdiction." "What?" she snapped. "That's not possible." "It's part of the neighborhood." Devlin turned the paper toward her. "According to county records, the HOA stops at the end of Pinecrest Drive. Mr. Walker's home is on Ridgeview Lane, which was excluded from annexation." Her face drained of color. "No, that can't be right." "Oh, it's right," I said calmly. "And here's the kicker, your own property. Line starts right at the old fence, post by your mailbox, which means your precious HOA jurisdiction ends about 30 feet before my driveway." Her mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, Karen looked speechless. I leaned forward. "So, Karen, here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave me alone. You're going to stop filing fake complaints. And if you step on my land again, I'll file trespassing charges. Simple as that." Devlin cleared his throat, closing the folder. "Mrs. Cunningham, I suggest you heed his warning. The county's boundaries are clear. This property is not subject to HOA governance." Karen stood abruptly, face red. "This is ridiculous. This whole neighborhood should be uniform. It's unfair." "Life's unfair," I said flatly. "Now please see yourselves out." She stormed toward the door, muttering something about eyesores and lower property values, her husband trailing behind, apologizing with his eyes. When the door finally shut, I exhaled a long breath. For the first time in weeks, the house felt peaceful. For about a month, things were quiet. No more notes. No more cops. No more Karen. I spent my weekends fixing up the shed, added shelves, painted a new sign that said Walker's Workshop, even strung up some lights. Life felt normal again. But one evening, as the sun dipped below the trees, I noticed something odd. A few of my front fence posts had been cut cleanly, almost like someone had sawn through them halfway. The next morning, the same posts were snapped clean off, and my mailbox lay in the ditch. That's when I knew she wasn't done. And this time, I was pressing charges. I called Morales again, showed him the damage, and we reviewed the footage. Sure enough, there she was, Karen, at 2:43 a.m., wearing gloves, sneaking along the fence line with a hacksaw. "Unbelievable," Morales muttered. "You want to take this to court?" I didn't hesitate. "Absolutely." He nodded. "You've got her cold." That night, as I sat on my porch under the glow of the shed lights, I realized something. This wasn't just about a shed. It wasn't even about me. It was about standing up to people who think rules only apply when they say so. People who confuse power with control. And I wasn't about to back down. I'll never forget the look on Karen's face when the sheriff's cruiser pulled up to her driveway at 8:30 in the morning. I was sitting on my porch with a cup of coffee, watching as 2 deputies walked up to her door. Her perfect little garden gnomes stood at attention by her walkway, each one looking like they'd seen better days, kind of like her reputation was about to. She opened the door in her robe, hair messy, still trying to process what was happening. "Mrs. Cunningham?" one of the deputies asked. "We have a summons here. You're being charged with vandalism, trespassing, and property damage." Her face went from confusion to panic to rage in about 3 seconds. "What? That's ridiculous."
He's lying.
"This is harassment!" The deputy held up the paper. "Ma'am, we have video evidence." "You'll have your chance to explain it in court." Her eyes darted across the street. To me. I didn't move. Just sipped my coffee and nodded politely. That's when she screamed, "This isn't over, Walker!" And I thought, you're right. It's not. A month later, we were both standing in front of a county judge. The courtroom was small, just a few benches, an old ceiling fan clicking above, and the kind of silence that makes you feel like everyone's heartbeat is on trial. Karen sat 2 tables over with her lawyer, Mr. Devlin. The same guy who'd looked so polished and confident in my kitchen. Now he just looked tired. I was there with Morales and the county records officer, and a flash drive. The judge, a middle-aged woman with steel gray hair and a voice that could cut glass, adjusted her glasses. "Let's begin. Mrs. Cunningham, you are accused of trespassing, vandalism, and property destruction. How do you plead?" Karen straightened in her chair. "Not guilty, Your Honor. I was performing my duties as HOA president." The judge raised an eyebrow. "On a property not under your HOA's jurisdiction?" Karen hesitated. "That's debatable." I tried not to laugh. My turn came soon after. I stood, handed over the flash drive, and Morales walked the court through the footage. Karen sneaking onto my property at night, sawing my fence, marking my shed with spray paint. The judge watched quietly, her lips pressed together. When the video ended, the only sound in the room was Karen's shaky breathing. "Mrs. Cunningham," the judge said evenly. "That's you in the footage, correct?" Karen swallowed. It's dark. That could be anyone." The judge leaned back. "You're wearing the same jacket you're wearing right now." Karen's lawyer sighed audibly. "Your Honor, my client—" The judge raised her hand. "Mr. Devlin, unless you have evidence disputing the property boundaries or ownership, I see no need to prolong this." He closed his briefcase. "We do not, Your Honor." The judge nodded. "Then it's simple. The court finds in favor of Mr. Walker. Mrs. Cunningham, you are ordered to pay restitution for damages and a fine for trespassing." Karen's voice cracked. "This is outrageous. He built that eyesore to spite me." The judge fixed her with a glare that could freeze fire. "No, ma'am. He built a shed on his own land. You're the one who made it personal." Karen's mouth snapped shut. Word spreads fast in small towns. Within a week, everyone knew what happened. The self-appointed Queen of Pinecrest had fallen from her throne. The HOA board quietly asked her to resign. Apparently, she'd made enemies there, too. Who knew? One afternoon, I found her husband, Mark, standing by my fence. He looked embarrassed but relieved. "I wanted to apologize," he said quietly. "Karen, she's been under a lot of stress since her mom passed. She gets controlling when she's anxious." I nodded. "I get it. But she went too far." He sighed. "I know. We're selling the house." For a second, I felt bad for him. Then I remembered the night she broke into my shed and smiled sadly. "I wish you peace, Mark." He nodded, and that was the last I ever saw of them. The twist. A few months passed. Summer rolled in, and I was finally able to enjoy the quiet. The shed had become my sanctuary. Tools neatly hung, workbench spotless, and a little sign I carved above the door that said, "Private land, private peace." Then one morning, I got a letter in the mail. From the county office. It was about the HOA boundaries and the same records I dug up. Turns out the county had reviewed my documents, realized the HOA's filings were outdated, and decided to officially redraw the boundary lines. They asked if I'd be willing to attend a meeting as the affected landowner. So I showed up. The county boardroom was full of familiar faces, neighbors, a few local officials, even some of the HOA folks who'd once signed Karen's petitions. The county surveyor stood at the front. After reviewing the records, we found several properties have been improperly managed under the Pinecrest. HOA for over 15 years. We're correcting those boundaries today. He pointed at the map projected on the screen. Bright yellow lines marking new divisions. And then he said the words that made the entire room go silent. Effective immediately. The Pinecrest HOA will no longer have jurisdiction over Ridgeview Lane, Willow Court, or Maple Bend. Those properties, including Mr. Walker's, are now independent and exempt. I just sat there stunned. Half the neighborhood, free. A few people started clapping. Others looked relieved. One older lady even whispered, "Finally!" That day changed everything. The HOA's power shrank overnight. Their funds, their control, their constant complaints, gone. And it all started because one woman called the cops on my shed. A few weeks later, Morales dropped by while I was working in the garden. He leaned on the fence, watching me fix a post. "Never thought I'd see you again?" he said, smiling. "Yeah, well, I try to stay out of trouble," I joked. He chuckled. "Heard you got the county to redraw the lines." "Not bad, Walker," I shrugged. "Guess it pays to know where your boundaries are." He nodded thoughtfully. Ain't that the truth? After he left, I sat on the porch and thought about that. Boundaries. They're more than just lines in the dirt. They're what protect your peace, your dignity, your freedom. Sometimes people like Karen forget that. They think rules and power give them control over everyone else. But real control, real peace, that comes from knowing what's yours and standing your ground. Months later, I heard through the grapevine that Karen and her husband had moved 2 towns over to a neighborhood without an HOA. The irony? Beautiful. A mutual friend told me she was trying to start a neighborhood improvement group there, but nobody was interested. Apparently, she'd learned the hard way that not everyone wants to be managed. As for me, the shed still stands strong. On quiet evenings, I turn on the porch light, grab a beer, and watch the sun dip behind it. The same shed that started a war became the symbol of something bigger, freedom earned. And if you stand close enough, you'll see a small plaque by the door that reads, "For everyone who's ever been told what they can't do, build anyway." If you take anything from my story, let it be this. Don't let anyone tell you where your line ends when you've done the work to know where it truly begins. Bullies come in all shapes, sometimes wearing name tags, sometimes holding clipboards. But truth, persistence, and a little bit of courage, they're stronger than any fake authority. So the next time someone tries to push you around, check the facts, stand tall, and never let fear draw your boundaries. Because peace isn't something you find, it's something you protect.